Okay, in the last video of this section in reporting, we're going to talk about version and epic reports. Now in the last section we talked about release and epic burn downs. And you're going to get a similar kind of view in this report, but it's a different look with slightly different information. So in this video we're going to learn about what is a version and an epic report. Again, they're very similar. So the version report, let's say, would be larger and contain a larger piece of value, and an epic would be smaller, and it would basically be the same kind of report but allow you to look at a specific version or a specific epic, and then you get some sort of forecast as to when that item would be completed. We'll look at how to read a version report, and then we'll also look at how we can use these reports to provide a forecast. So we're going to look at an example version report here. And you can see in this example, we've got the work again in the vertical axis represented in story points. Okay. And you can see there's actually quite a few story points in here because usually a version has a lot of functionality built into it. You can also see the horizontal axis represents time. Okay. There's a red line in there which represents the amount of unestimated work as it goes up and down as we move through this version. And you can see in this example, this version started in January. And here's today in this dotted line, and you can see that we have a projected completion date. Now some other things to note. You'll notice that the completed date actually is a cone shape, and there is a little bit to the left from that projected completion date is an optimistic date, and a little bit to the right of that is a pessimistic date. So we actually have an optimistic and pessimistic release date and projected based on the actual velocity of the team and the work that's included inside of that version. And that value is actually dynamically generated as we move through time. So if you remove scope from this version, that will pull the date in and it will actually deliver earlier. And if the team slows down or if you add more scope, then that date will get pushed out. And the closer you get to the actual release date, the projected completion date, the tighter that cone gets until there's basically no more cone left at all. So when you first start back in February or March, you'd have a much broader, wider cone given the fact that there's a lot of variables that could affect that completed date. This gives you a nice ability to look at this version over time and figure out what that completion date might look like and do some things very far ahead that would allow you to affect that, right? So should you bring the team together into one room? Should you add more people, more resources to the project? Should you change scope, et cetera, et cetera? You've got lots of choices, assuming you've got a good view out to the future and what's coming. So that brings us to the end of this section. All right, so in this section, we learned about what versions and releases are. We learned about what iteration, release, and epic burn down reports are and how we should read those. We learned what a sprint report is, the data that's inside of that sprint report and how we can read it. We learned what a velocity report looks like, why it's important for planning future sprints, what version and epic reports are and how to read those. And then we also talked about version and epic reports and using those to provide forecasts for when your version will be completed. All right, in the next section, we're going to talk about searching and filtering. So stay tuned.